President song again. George Washington, founder of the United States, 1789 to 1797. Boom, boom. John Adams. I don't have a fact for him, but anyways, he was president from 1797 to 1801. Thomas Jefferson. One of... Oh wait, no, I have a fact for Thomas Jefferson. John Adams died the same day as Thomas Jefferson, July 4, 1826, aka the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. James Madison. I don't have a fact for him. He was president from 1809 to 1817. James Monroe, the 5th president. He was quite good. 1817 to 1825. Yeah. John Quincy Adams, son of John Adams. He was the 6th president. 1825 to 1829 was when he was president. Andrew Jackson. He taught his parrot how to swear. He was president from 1829 to 1837. Martin Van Buren. He lived to see 8 other presidents after he was president up until he died. William Henry Harrison. He was only president for 30 days after coming president. John Tyler, the 10th president. He was president from 1841 to 1845. James Knox Polk. He was very young when he died. He was president from 1845 to 1849. Zachary Taylor was only president for 1 year from 1849 to 1850. Millard Fillmore, the first president to be born in the 1800s. He was born 7 days after New Year's Day 1800. He was 74 when he died. He was president from 1850 to 1853. Franklin Pierce. He died a tragic death. He was also alone when he died. He's known as the president to die the tragicest death. James Buchanan. He was never married. He predicted Abe's death. He knew that he would be assassinated. He was not good. Abraham Lincoln. He was the first president to die because of assassination by John Wilkes Booth. Andrew Johnson. I have no fact to say for him, but anyways, he was president from 1865 to 1869. Ulysses S. Grant. People think the S stands for something, but it stands for nothing. His real name was Hiram Rutherford B. Hayes. He was very famous for having a beard for some reason. James A. Garfield. He was the second president to be assassinated. Chester Alan Arthur. He was president for 4 very long years from 1881 to 1885. I also forgot to say, James Garfield was only president for how long? I think it was 9 months. And it was Grover Cleveland. He was president twice. He's the only person to do that. Benjamin Harrison. He looks a lot like Santa Claus. Anyways, moving on. Grover Cleveland again, the second time. William McKinley. He was the 3rd president to be assassinated. He was the first president. He was the first president to be president at the beginning of the 1900s. Theodore Roosevelt. He survived. being shot during a speech. He's amazing. Anyways, moving on. William Howard, he got stuck in a bathtub because he was very fat. Anyways, moving on. Woodrow Wilson, I have nothing to say for him. Warren Harding, he was only president for 2 years. He was quite. Oh, I do have a fact for Woodrow. Woodrow Wilson, the only president to be president during World War One. All of it, he was president. Calvin Coolidge. I have no idea what to say for him. Anyways, Herbert Hoover. He was quite old. He was 90 when he died. Another president was 90 when he died. Was John Adams. He was also 90. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He served for 12 years. He served through the entire World War II. Harry Truman. He became president only because Franklin Roosevelt died during his fourth term. Dwight Eisenhower was quite a good president. He also was president for a long time. Boom, boom, boom. John F. Kennedy, the most recent president to be assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald was only 23 when he was killed. Lyndon Johnson, personally my favorite president. Anyways, moving on. Richard Nixon, he wasn't a good president either. Gerald Ford, he was 96. Jimmy Carter, the oldest living president, he is 97 as of now. Anyways, Ronald Reagan, he was a famous actor 20 years before he became president. Anyways, George H.W. Bush, the most recent president to die back in 2018. Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was the first president to be president at the beginning of the 2000s. George W. Bush, son of George H.W. Bush. George W. Bush was president during the 9/11 attacks. Barack Obama, the first black president. Anyways, Donald Trump, the most recent president to lose the election. And finally, Joe Biden, president from 2021 to now. Also, his vice president is the first female one. Now I'll just name the vice president. Vice presidents of the United States. Okay. John Adams was vice president to George Washington. Thomas Jefferson was vice president to John Adams. Aaron Burr was vice president to Thomas Jefferson. George Clinton was one of the vice presidents, James Madison, and the other was Albert Gary. Daniel J. Tompkins, vice president to James Monroe. John C. Calhoun, one of the vice presidents to Andrew Jackson. Martin Van Buren, the other vice president to Andrew Jackson. Anyways, Richard Mentor Johnson, vice president to Martin Van Buren. John Tyler, vice president to William Henry Harrison. George Dallas, vice president to James Polk. Millard Fillmore, vice president to Zachary Taylor. William R. King, vice president to Franklin P.S. And also, just so you know, Millard Fillmore didn't have a vice president. John C. Breckinridge, vice president to James Buchanan. Hannibal Hamlin, one of the vice presidents to Abe Lincoln. The other was Andrew Johnson. Then he also didn't have vice president during his presidency. Anyways, Schuyler Colfax, one of the vice presidents. 2. Ulysses Grant. Henry Wilson, the other one. To Ulysses Grant. William Wheeler, vice president. 2. Rutherford Hayes. Chester Arthur, vice president. 2. James Garfield. Chester Arthur didn't have a vice president. Thomas Hendricks, Thomas Hendricks, vice president to Grover Cleveland during his first term. Anyways, moving on. Levi Parsons Morton, vice president. 2. Benjamin Harrison. Adlai Stevenson, the first. Other vice president to Grover Cleveland. Garrett Hobart, one of the vice presidents. 2. William McKinley. Theodore Roosevelt, the other vice president to William McKinley. Charles Warren Fairbanks, the vice president to Theodore Roosevelt. James S. Sherman, vice president to William Howard. Thomas Marshall, vice president to Woodrow Wilson. Calvin Coolidge, vice president to Warren G. Harding. Charles Gates Dawes, vice president to Calvin Coolidge. Charles Curtis, vice president to Herbert Hoover. John Nance Garner, one of the 3 vice presidents to Franklin Roosevelt. The other 2 are Henry Agard Wallace and Harry Truman. Alban William Barkley, vice president to Harry Truman. Richard Nixon, vice president to Dwight D. Eisenhower. Lyndon Johnson, vice president to John F. Kennedy. Herbert Humphrey, vice president to Lyndon Johnson. Spiro Agnew, one of the vice presidents to Richard Nixon. Gerald Ford, the other vice president to Richard Nixon. Nelson Rockefeller, vice president to Gerald Ford. Walter Mondale, vice president to Jimmy Carter. He's also the most recent vice president to die last year. He died last year. George H.W. Bush, vice president to Ronald Reagan. Dan Quayle, vice president to George H.W. Bush. Al Gore, vice president to Bill Clinton. Dick Cheney, vice president to George W. Bush. Joe Biden, vice president to Barack Obama. Mike Pence, vice president to Donald Trump. And the first ever female vice president is vice president right now. Kamala Harris. She's vice president Joe Biden.